When a small man with a very large and distorted ego meets the unpleasant punch of reality, what you end up getting is a situation very akin to what is happening now with Ricky Carmichael. For those of you that are probably already well aware, the internet is blowing up with one of the most embarrassing stories I have ever seen. The GOAT, Ricky Carmichael, who was undoubtedly the best and the greatest of all time in the sport, when it comes to his character and behavior off the track, it leaves a lot to be desired. So Daniel Blair, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but essentially Daniel Blair has finally come clean on what happened with his time as sort of host commentary duties in Supercross and the sabotage and manipulation that Daniel Blair dealt with on behalf of Ricky Carmichael, Leigh Diffey, that sort of dorky munchkin looking guy that I don't know why they get him, and various executives. And the internet storm and controversy, Ricky Carmichael, the stud motocross racer, has resorted to the embarrassing technique of blocking comments on his social media sites. You literally, if you go onto his sites, you cannot post a comment because the teeny tiny, fragile little ego that is Ricky Carmichael needs a safe space. I guess for him, it's more important to get complimented and to get praised than to actually face reality, because the sport has now finally, thanks to Daniel Blair, and in no small part because of the continual disrespect on behalf of Supercross towards Daniel Blair, he finally has spilled the beans. And man, the backlash for Leigh Diffey, who I've never liked, many of you I assume are in the same boat, pretty much painted the portrait that Leigh Diffey and Ricky Carmichael, among others, are small, fragile, little inflated ego sort of snakes. I am just astonished, and I just saw the video that apparently happened a few years ago with the interaction of Ricky Carmichael and Daniel Blair, someone that I love and I would imagine many of you do. The disrespect that Ricky sort of demonstrated to Daniel Blair, I could not believe. Daniel Blair is just such a nice guy that, he took it in stride, but it was a side that I have never seen from Ricky. And I got a shout out to Chris Cooksey. He has talked about sort of the ugliness of Ricky Carmichael that he hides pretty well, that you don't get to see except behind closed doors. And I have got to admit that for many years, I didn't know what he was talking about. And I don't know how I missed it. Embarrassingly, as soon as the news hit, I kind of looked into it. In the clip of Ricky Carmichael talking to Daniel Blair in an unbelievably disrespectful and condescending way, insulting the fans first and foremost, insulting Daniel Blair, and just looking like a petulant, spoiled little kid. That was the vibe. Ricky Carmichael, who was fantastic on the bike, is simply not as articulate, not as witty, and not as engaging as Daniel Blair. And from the looks of it, he absolutely could not stand it. It gets even more perplexing when you understand the accomplishments, the stature of Ricky Carmichael, the greatest of all time. He's got, I'm pretty sure, $30-40 million, has accomplished more than most people could dream of. And this just shows the ego of the individual, that you are just so in need of being the guy that you literally would go to the lengths of sabotaging and manipulating someone else's career and dream that they have worked years and dedicated their lives to. And Ricky Carmichael, Leigh Diffey, among others, pretty much tried to end that for Daniel Blair and succeeded. Again, the video is up. Daniel Blair has talked about it. I'm not going to go into the details because you guys should just watch it. It is a very sobering insight into the behavior of people that they look all nice and genuine and they look like stand-up dudes on camera, but guess what? Everybody does. It's behind closed doors. It's when they're able to behave in a way that is actually a true reflection of who they are, that when you suddenly get a peek behind that door, it can be shocking what you see, because the perception versus reality sometimes are at pretty significant conflict with one another. And that's what we saw. And man, Ricky Carmichael, get out of the booth. I don't want you. The fans don't want you. Leigh Diffey, why were you ever even in the booth? There isn't, nothing about you there's nothing about you that speaks of motocross or two wheels or anything. Get out of the booth. I don't like you or Ricky Carmichael. I take Daniel Blair's side every day. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I hope the fans at Indianapolis boo the house down. Get these two just weasels out of the booth. I don't know who they're going to replace it with, but I want the fans to make it known that this kind of just sabotaging, that's what, more than anything, the thing above everything else that I cannot stand is a bully. In the way that Daniel Blair was treated by people that were in a position above him, meaning that Daniel Blair couldn't really fight back. That is what is sort of, for me, got me so frustrated. He was being treated by people that were in a position that he wasn't really able to defend himself. Ricky Carmichael is kind of the king of the sport, and when you see how he, treated Daniel Blair, it is just an embarrassment. Get out of the booth. You're not as good as Daniel Blair. You do not have the wit, the charm, or the insight. You are uninteresting. You are equally as uninteresting as Leigh Diffey. What a dork this dude is. What else to say? Get out of the booth, guys. The fans don't want you. They don't like you. It's time to go. Thanks to Daniel Blair for spilling the beans. I got no love for either of you. Get out of the booth. It is an embarrassment what happened with Daniel Blair. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Turn the comments off. Get out of the booth. We don't want you. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed the video.